move it with such ease. That wasn't Hipwood's best kick. Good work, bit of a chaos ball. Gardner did well to trap it. Darcy fought. Nice selling of Candy. Got it to RT. The overlap from Fletcher. Fletcher around the corner. Gee, that's good from the Lions. The Wilmot. Loves to overlap, can go all the way. He's a thunderous kick. He steadies and he drills it. 48 metres. 47 around the corner. It's on line. Look at that, magnificent.
Up towards Lohman, given to him now by Gardner. Long ball, bouncing ball, skips through.
He goes over the line. Handsworth to sew this game up. Threads the needle. Oh, yeah.
It is the Brisbane Lions Fancast. We are back for another week. It is Sunday night, and as we speak, Geelong and West Coast have just started. It is all thanks to Hop On Brewery Tours and Crisp Communications. A game that seems forever ago. A Thursday night game. They seem few and far between for us at the moment. We're used to the Sunday time slot. It means we've had time to accrue a few questions that we'll get to later on in the show. But this was a case of another lackluster performance against a team that we probably should have beaten fairly convincingly. Shades of West Coast, North Melbourne, Richmond, call it what you like. But a win's a win, Patrick. A win is a win. It is still worth 4 points, and we find ourselves second on the ladder, despite playing a fairly ordinary game of footy.
I mean, which week are we talking about at this stage? Except for the Hawthorn and the Gold Coast one. But even then, I suppose people had certain, issues with the Gold Coast game. But, we won and we keep winning and we're not playing very well. And, I don't mind. I don't hate that. So, whatever. Again, classic case. I'm like, cool. I'll take the win, move on to next week. Because we're still a pretty good team. And I mean, let's go larger scope. The Lions never topped the table in 2001, 2, 3, and 4. So they always knew, and they always dropped stupid games along the way, against teams that were not great. And then they were just like, oh, finals, cool. Let's time to cook. So I think there's a little bit more of that about our blokes, I think. So, and it's shown by the...
It does sort of feel like we are just hanging out for September so we can get the real work started. But it would be, I don't know, it's, we seem to lift for the good teams, and we'll have a bit of a more in-depth chat about that later on in the show as well. What I have learned is that 5-day breaks are not treating us well this year. 5-6 day breaks. We're finding it hard to back up and produce, I guess, the defensive intent, the stuff that we saw in spades all 4 quarters last week against Hawthorn, the tackling pressure, all that sort of stuff. The midfield, again, was a little bit off and not shown up by an Essendon midfield, but certainly didn't have the dominance we thought they probably could have, should have, especially an Essendon fielding a team that was really, really cobbled together, especially in terms of their key defensive stocks. Todd Goldstein, he's 106 years old, but still, I thought he was pretty good on Thursday night. It is good that we're getting the wins, but there's still plenty to improve on, especially when we're coming up against Adelaide, who looked about as good as any team ever has on the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is about these 20th anniversary premiership celebrations. Port Adelaide had a bit of a rough one last year, if you recall. You had quite a few things to say about that, and Sydney, not good. Did you see the quote from Ty Kennelly?
I didn't see the quote from Ty Kennelly, no.
I can't. It might not be Jude Bolton, but it was something on the lines of like someone gave a speech to the blokes before the game to like rev them up, and he just said it didn't work. So.
I did see Ryan O'Keefe had some thoughts after the game, and obviously Wayne Miller let his thoughts known pretty explicitly after the game as well, which was a bit strange because you don't often hear opposition players just sort of lay the boot in after the game's done. So that was a bit strange. So they've had to come out and apologise for him today. So
what was wrong with that though? Like, he just say that they were a bit of a rabble? Because to me, like, I like that choice of word because it told me, who didn't watch the game, exactly everything I needed to know about that Sydney performance. It was perfectly enunciated. I don't think they need to say sorry about that. Surely not. What are we doing?
No, I get it. It was a bit disrespectful, and it is a bit strange for someone to say that, because everyone sort of toes the party line. And you know what football is like, they're robots. Oh, yeah, no, it was a tough game. You can't take any team lightly, blah, blah, blah. But to come out and say, that they were a bit of a rebel and they smoked them was a bit strange and a bit out of pocket. So anyway, we've got Adelaide to talk about later on in the show. Let's have a chat about Essendon. No changes. So Oscar and Kitty still the week off, which we both said we didn't mind, considering, we found out that Kitty had some swelling on the knee, so that's not good. And Oscar, if he's got a bit of a dicky back, considering Darcy Fort performed pretty well against Lloyd Meek, to have another week off, not the worst thing in the world.
No, I didn't. I wasn't surprised, and I didn't mind at all. Although, I do think that if we had our kind of full squad at this point in time, we'd probably be fading out of these games a little bit less, because I think we'd be, you'd put in a couple of players here and there, and you'd change things around, keep things fresh. So, because there were some players that, not that they didn't run out the four quarters, but they just look a little bit not kind of brutally manic as we can be. So, no changes going into the game. No surprises. For Essendon, they had a bunch. Yeah, they had 4 or 5, I suppose. I think 4, maybe. And, I didn't really... admittedly, Essendon were a far better watch this year than they were last year. And the speed they were putting on the game made me a little bit nervous at times. Unlike it didn't last year. So, but we got off to an absolute flying start in the first half.
That we did. It was a perfect first quarter, basically 6 goals to 1. And I'm going to put it on me last week for saying no one's going to convince me that Nick Martin's a good footballer, and he ended up kicking 2 pretty good and handy goals at one at the very start of the game and one towards the end to get them within a sniff. He had an all right game. I'm still standing by that.
I did nearly message you and be like, can you stop talking shit about, like, you've got to do what I do. What I do is I talk about multiple players. So, I'm kind of spreading the spiteful performance spike, although allegedly it's not really a spike. But you said it about the Platt dude for Hawthorn, and then you said it about Nick Martin. Had enough.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, fair call. I'm just going to keep my
mouth shut.
And what
did say about my guy, Zach Merritt? He got put to half back. So he's
that was a very strange one. So a very strange one.
He was virtually anonymous the whole game, and you're sitting there going, okay, this guy's had 12 touches and we've kicked 9 behinds, and he's taken all the kickouts. So good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, very, very strange. Great start, obviously. We had, I think, our first 7 goals were all different goal scorers. We got to hear all different songs at the Gabba, and then second quarter rolled around, it was 1 goal 6. Really, really should have been much further ahead at halftime, which was pretty disappointing. Must be said, Essendon's pressure was well above 200 for like quarters 2 and 3, and they came home with a wet sail, but thankfully we were able to get it done in the end, as we know. But good to have Kai Lohmann have an impact on this game.
Yeah, I definitely think the second quarter, the misses that we had were ones that probably, they weren't like speculative efforts. They were ones that either just missed or they were good. And we left a couple out on the, that didn't get shots. So we've talked about this heaps, but if we even that up to 4 goals 2 or 5 goals 3 or whatever, or make some better decisions, I don't think Essendon are in that game at all. And I mean, their pressure was good. particularly in the third quarter. Essendon were good in the third quarter, but Kai Lohmann got a bit of a lucky one for his first goal of the season.
Yes, he did.
Grubber off the ground, which is fine. And then goals from some of our half backmen that we both like, Fletcher and the Wilmot.
Wilmot's goal was so strange because you could see...
It was terribly defended. Terribly defended.
I know. He just sort of waltzed in, coming in off the centre square, rolling into 50, expecting someone to come at him. He went through about 3 or 4 different options of what he could have done with the ball before he was eventually like, I guess I'll just have a ping here because no one's coming at me. And then it was a goal at the end. And the big embrace with Harris at the end.
I don't know why players don't do that more. But, not to say that it's not super often that, your leading patterns force all of the defenders to just back off.
Yep.
Entirely back off and keep backing off. He could have strolled to 35 metres if he wanted to. As it were, we got the Wilmot and he put it through the big sticks, which was good. And he loved it and we loved it. Jasper Fletcher kicked a good goal.
The lead up to Fletcher's goal was amazing because it was a half volley ground ball get from Dizzy to Darcy Fort, who sold one of the great handball candy and then got it across, and it was a good finish. And then I think straight after that was maybe just a Dunkley kick off the deck, and Rayner picked it up, and it was just party time. And then it got to sort of, and this is my fault again. I got to quarter time ish or a bit before quarter time, and I said to Andy, who I sat next to, I said, "Ooh, could be a grim night for Essendon here."
I think you need a lobotomy. I think you do. Stop talking during games.
Yeah, and look, as soon as those words left my mouth, I thought, ooh, probably shouldn't say that, actually.
No, you're a bit of a peanut. The behinds killed us in the second quarter. Third quarter, we were lucky to get, I think the goal just before halftime kind of settled us a little bit. Logan Morris with an absolute bullshit snap from 45 metres out. On comms, they were sort of talking about how difficult an attempt this was going to be. And he smashed it really well.
Smashed it.
So, yeah. The commentary was so-so.
You watch Fox or Seven?
Fox, because Seven's still pootering around the 720p range for the HD channels. So I'll take the 4K. And Matt Hill kept calling Ainsworth. Bailey was Berry a lot. There was a lot of any blonde guy was Ashcroft. It was a bit like, I don't imagine the defending premiers being this poorly known of who they are.
Yep.
So, pick up your socks. Although Brownie, you'd expect Brownie to have dude, what the hell are you talking about? So, is what it is.
Hodgie's the worst, who literally played with Noah Ainsworth and just keeps calling him Ainsworth.
Yeah.
Noah Ainsworth literally installed a putting green in Hodgie's house during COVID, and he still can't get his name right.
I didn't know that. That's insane.
It's annoying, but whatever. I mean, it's small fruit to be picking at this point in time. I thought
we all know I have a problem with every commentator for various reasons, so let's not get me on that tirade. So.
The key defenders, after having some pretty good weeks, didn't have their greatest night against, it must be said, Nate Caddy. I do enjoy watching him play, and I think he's going to be an absolute star moving forward, and he had a great game for the Dons as well, but not Harris's best game for sure.
No, someone actually said, I don't know where I read it, but it was if Harris tries to do that thing where he takes on a tackler and tries to roll around, push them out, if he does that and gets caught, he's going to have a bad time. And he did that in the first or second quarter, and I was like, ooh, let's see how this theory goes. It went pretty well. Nate Caddy's good. I think between him and Logan Morris, they're different sorts of players, so I can understand people not wanting to kind of categorize them as both young key forwards. But so I think, between Nate Caddy and Logan Morris, you're looking at two very potentially destructive key forwards in the next sort of 10, 15 years. So good for them. I
think like Logan Morris is more your Jonathan Brown type, contested pack mark, reasonably reliable set shot. That's something that's going to improve over the years, you'd hope. Similar build as well.
Rewalt almost.
Yeah, maybe even closer to a Buddy Franklin. Works his way up the ground. Can run as well. Incredibly athletic.
He's got very good running form. Like extremely good running form.
Probably a better contested mark than Buddy at this stage, anyway. And obviously kicked that freak goal over his head. Missed one that would have been pretty good.
Would it be cynical of me to say that I don't think that the one he kicked over his head is that difficult?
I think it's the sort of thing you used to do as a kid, like a lot.
Yeah, because I can definitely remember kicking goals like that under eights.
But I think trying to do that as an adult, in the heat of an AFL match is a little bit different. It was pretty good, and like at the ground, like every spectator, Essendon and Brisbane was like, yeah, fair shout. That's a good goal.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess I'm just me being me. For me, that's not even in the conversation for goal of the year, but it's an interesting, unique goal nonetheless. So good for him. But he completely just balls it up, like just prior to. So lived by the caddy, died by the caddy.
Sure, I like it.
Yeah. There's a golf joke in there somewhere too. So we got pegged back a bit and obviously had to kind of, goals to Gardner, Lohman, Hipwood. So some pretty important goals that kind of came at the right time, I think. It was a good mark
just
by
steady,
Gardner.
Yeah.
The forwards kind of contributing in a pretty meaningful way. So, but it got tight. Essendon hit the lead, and I don't think anyone expected that.
No, although you could feel it around the ground when it was coming, when they were pegging the margin back. There's sort of murmurings around the crowd of, oh God, not again. Everyone's just sort of flashing back a couple of weeks to that game against Melbourne, thinking, we've seen this happen before, and we've seen it happen very recently. Can we please not have it happen again? There's still like an underlying sense of, we should win this. Like, everything tells us we should win this, but there's every chance that we won't, with the way that we've bottled games before and the way we're playing, just the way they rebounded out of defense so easily, time and time again, was very, very frustrating. Yeah,
we didn't look quite as well set up as we have, but at the same time, Essendon also didn't look particularly well set up. So a bit different to the Melbourne game where, Melbourne set up extraordinarily well in the fourth quarter and kind of choked us into kind of making really poor decisions, and that's obviously why they ran over the top of us so well. Essendon are still lacking that. So, if we look at last year's game in round 27 or 23 or 4 or 5, whatever number they go up to, they had an inability to put speed on the game, whereas this time they had an inability to kind of choke the game whilst trying to put speed on it. So they're not able to do both, which the really good teams can do. So that's what gave us the opportunity. And, we were able to kick the last 3 goals, and a collector's item for Noah Answorth to kind of ice the game before he got absolutely smashed. So poor stuff.
How good. I love the way Answorth kicks, especially when it's, he was just inside 50. His boot never gets like more than half a meter off the ground. He just sort of like little ballet flick kicks it. It just seems to travel.
Well, you called it in the preseason because he flushed one from like 60 meters out, and he had a set shot at goal from about 55. And I was like, come on, man, just tap it in. Like, you've got it here. And he didn't. So it was good to see him kick a goal after that. But
that was awesome.
But I think on the whole, like, the team dropped off, but the team kind of collectively helped us. And there was some big there was a massive performer. Yes. But I think underneath that it was quite an even contribution. Although I think the votes for me are quite clear for what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought it was a pretty even spread. Like they put time into Zorko to kind of stop his rebound, but Zorko looked a little bit off. And aside from that, their midfield is not terrible. Everyone's got a pretty okay midfield, and it's not to say that we shouldn't be absolutely shelling them, but they had some pretty angry guys. Laverde had a pretty good game.
He did.
Assuming that was him. He's sort of one of those people whose face I never remember. And win and move on.
That's basically it, isn't it? Win and move on. It's not a game that we're ever going to really spend much time thinking or talking about ever again. If for some reason you look back at the end of the year, you'll see the win and you might go, what happened there? And then you might look into it a little bit and you go, oh, that's right. Pack that one away and store it for a later day.
Well, I probably should have just rewatched the KO Mini before we started, and I instead watched a video about trees. So
sure.
That probably tells you all you need to know. There was a graphic that someone posted a little while ago. This is a complete aside, but it is it'll come back around, so don't worry. Which showed every draft pick and like mid-season draft pick and recruit we'd had, and like since this, whenever 2018 or something like that. And it had like their elite ranked games and how it was all like kind of nicely designed and stuff. And I was going through it with a fine tooth comb, as I am inclined to do. I don't remember Matt Eagles playing 2 games in like 2020. I of course remember his games in 2018. But He played 2 random games in 2020, and I looked up which ones they were. He played like 44% game time and got like 1 kick in both games. It was like very weird because they were statistically the same game. Like one was against the Bulldogs, one was against, and it was like, I have no idea that if you'd quizzed me and said Matt Eagles' last game was when he did his abdominal against Sydney, I remember that. We know that I remember useless stuff. And you'd think that I would remember Matt Eagles playing in 2020, but I have no memory of it. No idea.
I have vague recollections of it because I remember him getting named and everyone, celebrating. And then I remember him not doing much, and that was basically it for Matty Eagles, unfortunately. Yeah. Don't forget to buy your Matty Eagles bootleg shirts at brisbanelionsfancast.com.au, by the way.
Good plug. That's not it's coming back around. The idea was that it was games that I just had no recollection of. So this will be one of those. We'll probably look at it and go, yeah. So how good. Is there anyone you would like to talk about?
Not a huge amount. I thought Will was pretty good. Zach Bailey is putting together a really, really good season. Archie was fine. We'll have a chat about Eric Hipwood later because we got a question about him. But, I remember speaking about him having a pretty good 5-6 week period. But since he's been taking on the backup ruck duties, I feel like it's affecting his game a little bit. Thought Darcy Gardner was fine. It's hard to say much about Dev Rob. Charlie was quiet after his, he got done by Andy McGrath again. Froggy was fine. They were all just sort of fine without being amazing. There was obviously a couple of players that stood out above the rest, and we'll have a chat about that in just a couple of moments when we do our votes. But yeah, everyone was fine.
Yeah, it seemed Levi seemed a little bit off, which is okay. It's okay for that to happen. I am not enjoying seeing him getting the ball kind of defensive 50 on the arc and being that kick, because he hasn't quite got the flat kick that you'll notice quite a lot of our players that have, even Noah Answorth, we've been kind of worried of his disposal in the past. He's flattened that kick up and he's gone to work on his technique. Yeah. And, Levi gets caught because he's trying to do the team thing in terms of hitting that 45 kick or going back across. But we've seen it in a few recent weeks that it's not quite been cricket. Yeah. So I think he's the sort of player that will probably end up doing a lot more damage when he's played further forward. And we saw that with his goal against Hawthorn. But yeah, that's just a little bit of a bit unsure about that. And I understand that's the nature of him playing in that kind of wing position. Zach Bailey's kind of, for a lot of time, we were wondering what the hell he was doing and what position he was playing. And, this is probably going back 2 years almost, where his position got swapped around. He's almost this transitional link whenever we get the ball where he comes inside. He sort of always sits in between the square, like the center square. He's always in that channel. And, man, it's a bit like the prelim against Geelong, where you see him hit those kicks or make the run through. And it's pretty unique because there's not really any other players that do that with that level of frequency. And I think it's a pretty big weapon. And I think it's probably a system or a set play or an idea that they're working with that hasn't quite clicked. But, he should have sunk 2 set shots and you're in the Stevie J territory. So everyone's looking at that. So
that's the hot stat floating around at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, well, there's a few around. Cosy Pickett, obviously, I don't know how he went today, but I'm assuming he kicked 17 behinds. So don't know.
Don't. Oh my God, Melbourne. Other than that, no, fine, whatever. Let's move on and get onto some votes for hopandbrewerytours.com.au. Book yourself a half for a full day tour across the Gold Coast or Brisbane. The 3, I would imagine, is fairly obvious. It is for me anyway, but you tend to do things a little differently. Hugh McCluggage gets my 3 votes, surprisingly enough. I'm going to give Noah
Answorth. You give the 3 votes to Dev Rob.
Wouldn't have thought so, mate. Noah Answorth gets the 2, and Kai Lohmann gets the 1 for getting back into it, hitting the scoreboard, and finally playing some footy. Yeah,
nice. I've toyed with my 1 because I'm sort of a little bit unsure. But I feel like because I gave him the 3 last week, I can't give him a vote, Noah Answorth, because I said he wouldn't play a better game. And I don't think it was as good a game. I think
no, it wasn't as good as last week.
But no, so McCluggage, my 3. I've gone Darcy Wilmot 2 because I thought he had an absolutely fantastic game.
He did,
and he really caught the eye for me. And I think Fletcher gets my 1 because I heard someone say insanely, probably based on nothing, that it's rare to see a player go at 100% efficiency. And it's like, you didn't watch Jasper Fletcher do that and kick a goal from half back. So, yes, he's good. So.
Did you see my mate Horny release the top 10 best kicks and top 10 or bottom 10, I suppose, the worst kicks as well? And Jasper Fletcher was nestled in at maybe number 6, number 7 in the comp for kicking efficiency.
Is he 4?
Yeah, look, I can't remember off the top of my head. It was a couple of weeks ago now, but it was good, obviously.
Yeah, I did see that, and there's a bit of there's a funny coincidence that I won't go into that can be said about that. But if you want to know, you can ask. But that sounds really salacious, but it's not.
It does.
He's doing well. Motty was really good, and obviously McCluggage was
superhuman.
Yeah, not superhuman. He's good. He's a smart footballer, and he's learning how to utilize that to his strengths.
Yeah,
I think his spatial awareness is his superpower, if you will, and I think that is what he does better than any player in the competition. And I'm not talking about his awareness of where he puts his disposals, but where he is in between contests and where he sits. Because I made a point to talk about this, and then some fuck from Fox Sports said the same thing I was going to say, and it might have been David King, and I'm not happy about that.
He's big on McCluggage at the moment.
I've been big on McCluggage since he was like 18 or something. I love that man.
Yeah, I mean, we all do. And that was, that would have to be his best game for the club, you'd have to think. Right up there at top 3 at the very, very least, but that'd be very close. And then I don't know if you saw at the end of it, Channel 7, they do a man of the match award at the end of it. I don't know if they do it every game or just Thursday nights, but they gave the TV to Logan Morris, and Fags was walking past when they were interviewing him, and they're like, "Oh, we've just given the TV to Logan Morris as our best on. Who do you think was best on?" Fags just goes, "Hugh McCluggage." Like, yeah, Logan was very good, but Hugh McCluggage had 41 touches, 2 direct goal assists, 7 score involvements, or 12 score involvement, 7 clearances, something stupid like that. It's like, yeah, nothing against Logan, but I thought Hugh McCluggage was probably good.
Didn't Logan get subbed?
No, Levi got subbed off in the end.
Oh, Levi got subbed, right. I might be having deja vu from the week before, but deja vu, that's not the correct way of saying that. For someone as finicky about phrasing as I am, I need to take myself out back and old yell at myself. So, I'm not surprised, but I don't know. What are they thinking giving man of the match to Logan Morris?
That screams of who's walking past at the moment that had an okay game. There's Logan Morris, grab him. And I thought Logan actually was pretty good.
Yeah, he's fine. He's doing a really good job, and he's kind of the de facto first forward now. So have fun with that, dude. You're going to start playing on some pretty annoying players soon, and he'll probably do really well.
Well, he'll have his work cut out for him, as will they all this Friday night at the Adelaide Oval. Let's have a quick chat about the twos and talk about any potential team changes for that game. Tom Doedee got through the game, didn't set the world alight. He was fine. Dev Rob played another full game in the twos after his stint on the Thursday night. Back in the middle, 31 touches, had a scoring shot missed, 6 clearances, 6 tackles, pretty good game. Jimmy Tunstall was fine. Will McLaughlin with another 5 goals, another 5-goal bag for him. Semi Marshall was okay. Other than that, Zach Kostelski played up forward in the last quarter, kicked a goal. So he's been utilised just about bloody everywhere. The surprise packet was Lincoln McCarthy's younger brother, Curtis McCarthy, had a pretty good game as well.
Curtis with a C, no less.
Yeah. 4 goals, 1. So he had a good game. Ty Gallup had one of his games where he did not do a huge amount. He was used as backup ruck. Had 10 hit-outs, 6 tackles, which is pretty good for him. 7 touches, didn't affect the scoreboard at all. So we've spoken about on the show before. He has those games where he can kick 3-4 goals, and then the next week he'll go pretty quiet. This was one of those. So good to have Brucey back in the game as well, but he had a very, very quiet game by his standards. So got the win. We were trailing pretty much the whole game. Essendon got off to a fast start, and then it wasn't until the last quarter where we hit the lead, kicked the last 4 goals, and ended up with a 20-point win.
Seems good. I kind of got sidetracked there because I forgot to even mention Jared Berry in the game at all. I thought he was very good.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he definitely was.
And I was, admittedly, we know that I like my weird, I like the quadruple double, right?
Mm.
If McCluggage had 6 tackles more, and that's a lot of tackles, but he's normally a tackling machine. He would have got one, and Berry was only 1 mark and 2 handballs away, which is a little bit annoying. Because imagine the 2 of them.
Yeah.
2 of them.
Just the boys.
But, yeah. So, anyway, the twos, yes. I think for Doedee, it's probably hard to, set the world on fire by playing sort of as a sort of key backman or, So, I think if he's doing the right things and hitting the contest, as it were, then that's probably what they want. But going into this week, I don't see changes really. Do you?
Maybe Oscar, maybe Kitty. It really depends. It really, really depends how close they were last week and whether they decided to hold them because it was a 5-day break, and trying to keep them for this game that we know is going to be a big one. So maybe.
I'd be inclined to keep things as they are, with the caveat that I still think that I would be putting Coleman in potentially ahead of Zorko, but that's just me.
Dev Rob as the sub. I know it's hard because we've got 12 minutes of game time across 2 weeks to go off, but Dev Rob as the sub is just not... It doesn't wash with me because, apart from the fact he's not getting any game time, he just needs time to work into a game as, in the position he plays. And by the time you bang him on with 10 minutes left, he's just sort of running around trying to get into it, and it's just making no difference whatsoever. Whereas I think Connor McKenna can.
Yeah, he doesn't scream explosive player, Dev Rob.
No.
And I think Connor McKenna is kind of prototype sub. What he did at the back end of last year was perfect.
Yeah.
So
or Bruce. I mean, I'm happy to have Bruce as the sub as
well.
well.
Bruce too. Like I think and I know that sort of. I mean, Zorko as a sub to me also great idea. He's had a couple of weeks where he's not been quite at his usual self, and I just think that when you're old, sometimes you need a rest. Sorry,
he was pretty good against Hawthorn.
11 turnovers for me is not great.
You've been trying to retire Zorko for ages, though. So whatever, go for it.
Yeah, well,
just means he's in line for another All-Australian blazer.
I don't think he's going to be All-Australian this year. So, and I don't think he would have been All-Australian last year if not for Coleman's injury. So I know there's a lot of what's and ifs, but you know, yeah. I'm going to stop talking now.
As I said, we will talk about this in a little bit more in depth because we do have a question. Hipwood is the backup ruck. How are you seeing that? It's been a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks now. Sam Day must be close to coming back into the team if he's available. But he might work his way back through the twos. I would probably imagine that would be the case. How are you seeing Eric as the backup ruck?
I think he's working pretty fine, but it's not really leading into his strong suit, which you can kind of look at and go, well, sometimes he's not very present in games and it's his work rate in the other things that he does. So if we're winning games and he's doing a job, whether it be forward of the ball or forward of the ball and as a ruck, and we're winning, it's probably fine. Because it's sort of, you're looking at it having two more key forwards that are kind of both not really contributing in an output level. And I know Gardner got a few goals against Melbourne, and I understand that he does his job, but it's hard to see where the trade-off is. But at this point, we don't really have another option, and until Day comes back, we are sort of tied into that. And Gardner did a bit of forward half rucking as well. So did Logan Morris, which was weird. Like, it was just a token boundary throw-in. Yeah. But, like, one. But I don't mind it, but it's not really a long-term thing for me.
No. It's a tough one. I'm not super keen on it because I feel like the rest of his game is suffering a little bit. And as I said before, you know, he had that really good 5-6 week period where he was really good. You know, he obviously kicked 5 against the Dogs. He was one of the few players that actually stood up against Collingwood. You know, he's kicked 2 goals here, 3 goals there, whatever, and has played really well. But since that role has changed, I feel like his output has dropped off a little bit, and he's struggled to get his bearings, which is a bit of a shame. So it's a bit of a wait and see. Obviously, while Oscar is still a bit hurt, you know, is the option to keep Ford in the team, rush Sam Day back? Who knows? It's just sort of where we are at the moment.
I don't know that I think I prefer it to 2 rucks, to Oscar and Ford. I think I prefer it because I think it gives us more more allowance. I think if you have Hipwood and Fort and Logan as your 3, you lose a bit because Hipwood can cover the ground at pace. And Gardner's not really a slouch as well, but when you start having sort of Fort and O, they're both pretty sluggish, which I know is funny because Day is as well, but I think he was starting to find a little bit of groove with where he was going and like presenting to the ball in kind of a meaningful way at the beginning, or during the Collingwood game and at the very beginning of the Gold Coast one. So
he's also got a lot of experience as a forward ruck, whereas Eric doesn't. So he doesn't know how to balance those roles quite as well. And at least, you know, Sam Day creates such a good contest. He'll bring it to ground more often than not. And he's a fairly good field kick, finds himself in good position. So, it's just a shame he did his hammy when he did.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how that goes in the back end of the year. So we've got a fair few wait and sees, I think, between that with Coleman and Starcevic, and I don't envy the selectors, I'll tell you that.
Sure. All right, well, let's get into some questions. Thanks to Chris Communications, chriscoms.co. Let's have a look at what people have been saying, feeling, thinking about last week's game. Let's talk about our mate Danielle. Dan says, do we think this may be on purpose so we don't pull a Sydney and run out of gas at the end of this season with a team full of injuries? The way that we've been performing up to date, because obviously last year Sydney were unstoppable. I think they were 14-1 or something, and then the wheels did start to fall off around this time. Obviously they got hammered by Port, lost a few games here and there. I think Carlton got them and stuff like that. So it's hard to think that this may be by design, but it wouldn't totally surprise me as well that we've started this season a little bit stop-start, sort of we're rising here, falling there, dropping games we probably shouldn't have.
I don't think any team that is trying to win a premiership wants to be playing their best football at round 12? Yeah, I think if you surveyed it and said, do you want to? And that's where I think the Bulldogs, you're a little bit, I'm like, do they worry me? It's like, not yet. Collingwood worry me because they've got the kind of propensity to dip and then come back. Quite similar to 23, really, because if you look at that, like Collingwood were top of the table for the whole season, but they did have a form dip before finals and they kind of got it out of their system so that they could just motor on. So it's kind of a bit, you want to be winning games. You'd rather be winning games and not playing well than not playing well and not winning games, or playing well and then that's your peak. Our peak, we've seen what it can be in big finals against big opposition. And I don't think we need to be worried about that. I said last year in the final series that we were kind of battle hardened coming into that. And I think that does a lot for the psychology of the team. And one example I'll give you of that one was just how much improved Hodge and Birchall were when they played in finals for us as opposed to just in the home and away season, particularly in obviously not 19 for Hodge. He was nearly best on ground against GWS, and Birchall really lifted in the finals that he played. So I think that's kind of done a lot for the team where they lift in the big games. You see it against Hawthorn, pivotal things. I think this week will be interesting against Adelaide, where I think Adelaide are very good. I'm not 100% sold on Nix as a coach. I think he's ebbed and flowed and he's done really well with what he's got, but I don't know in game if he's quite. I don't know. You're not sure. You don't really know what his coaching identity is, and I wonder if Fagan could kind of do something with that. The professor can kind of come in and. I
know the thing is they've got Murray Davis there as well, who's worked with Fags for so long at the head of everything. So we saw it in the preseason, and as we've played against Adelaide the last few years, they seem to be so close, those games. Within a kick or two, and then even the preseason game as well, where Murray Davis took the reins, was close again, and they ended up winning that one. So I expect no different on the weekend. It's going to be an absolute classic. I'm glad we've got an 8-day break as opposed to their 6-day break. So that is good. That is good. I'm hoping that will help us.
So 8 and a 7? Because they played Friday night. They play Friday night?
No, they played last night.
No, they played Saturday night. It is 8 and 6.
Yeah.
Oh, the shoe is on the other foot now.
Yeah.
Excellent. Cool.
Obviously, there is, travel factored in. They obviously have to travel back to Adelaide. We have to travel down. So there's all that stuff to consider. But I think, an extra 2 days on them will certainly help us. Not that they had, a extremely tough contest against Sydney.
Fagan said after the Hawthorn game that our preparation for Essendon would be more cerebral than it would be physical. So I think anytime you can get physical rather than just dealing with the cerebellum, the brain of it all, Was it just Shadow Brain leading training? I don't know. But yes, next question.
Tom, how much of a mindset and game plan change is done when it's raining? I know it drizzled the first half, but when the rain started getting heavy, we looked like a different team. Are there changes needed when it's that wet we just didn't put in place, or do we just lose when Essendon decided to play incredible footy? It was interesting because that second half, oh my God, some seriously uncharacteristic, like people falling over, really poor skill execution. Froggy's kick that missed the targets by 20 metres went out of bounds. Lockie Neal was fumbling, and he never fumbles. There was just some slapstick footy. But at the same time, Essendon had the same conditions and they weren't making, they still made, some mistakes, and we got 11 goals from turnover. So yes, they did. But some of the stuff was genuinely comical, and just like the groans from the crowd when those things would happen, it's just like, oh, come on, guys. Like, you're making this so hard on yourselves when you don't need to.
I mean, if you go back to a few years ago, we belted Essendon by like 80 points in the wet.
That's
up
true.
There at the Gabba. Danaher had an absolute worldie, and Daniel Rich kicked the ball like 7 kilometres. So I think it's just, it happens. And I don't think it was a kind of wet game that was a slog, not like Gold Coast and Fremantle, where that was a slog. That was how I would quantify that, as like a proper wet weather game. Whereas I didn't see that for our game. It didn't feel as wet weathery. It felt like you could still get away with trusting your game plan and your process. So I think it was on the it didn't feel like a bona fide wet game to me. So I think they probably did the right thing and stuck with it, and it worked in the end. Because I think when we transition our game plan, I've said it before, it's like when you're driving in the Grand Prix and they put the tyres on too late and you're like faffing about on slicks like an idiot. So, yeah, that's my thought.
We've spoken about it a little bit already, but let's get to Harrison, who sent through a voice memo through our SpeakPipe channel.
G'day, boys. Long-time caller, first-time listener here. Thank you for the content as always. Love the show. Great to see you on the big screen as well at the Gabba there on Thursday, JB. My question for you today is, why do you think that Eric Hipwood has not taken the next step with Joe Danaher retiring? It seems like Logan Morris has now become our main key forward. And why is Eric Hipwood not becoming that main target that we thought he was going to be when Joe Danaher retired? Just a little bit curious about that. Keen to hear your thoughts. Thank you again.
There's Harrison, and a big shout out to Harrison, I know what you're going to say. A big shout out to Harrison, who he does run that the Goalers AFL podcast on YouTube, so make sure you check that out. He actually runs the big screen at the Gabba. He sent me a message on Thursday night, said, "Hey, what section are you sitting in? I'll try and get you on the big screen." So I let him know. I was like, "Well, don't go out of your way here," but he did. So that was really cool. So we, got our big faces on the screen. I was there with Mum and Andy and Deb and the people either side of me, and so we did the whole "it's me on the TV." Yeah, so that was cool. So thanks for that one, Harrison. Appreciate it.
I'm glad that hasn't happened when I'm go to Gabba games. Otherwise, I'd think it would be like the John F. Kennedy shooter was in the crowd or something like that, because I'd just be sitting there with like a coat on and my arms folded, and they'd be like, "Oh, get security. We got a breach here." Of course not. Yeah, it's an interesting one with Hipwood, because I think sometimes it can be forgotten that he was the number one key forward before Danaher was there. He kicked not a lot of goals, but he kicked goals. And he was, the focal point in the team, with McStay as kind of the grunt man next to him. I think his difficulty in sort of stepping onto that and being, let's say like a star key forward, has been the injury at the beginning of the year and his kind of limited preseason. And then he kind of, if his form in that 5-6 week period had kind of continued on for the rest of his career, I don't think anyone would really have too much of an issue with it. They'd be like, yeah, he pretty much did. But I think, as you said earlier on, the ruck element is curtailing his game at the moment, and he is probably giving himself to the team to the detriment of himself at the moment. So, what are any other thoughts?
No, I think that just about sums it up. That just about sums it up.
That's good.
All right, here's one from Kayla. Are we seeing the early steps of the changing of the guards? There's a core younger group that, regardless of the leader's poor skills and choices, managed to pull the pieces together in the end. And there's probably players like, Wilmot, Answorth, Kai, Fletch, obviously, as well. Yeah, I thought Will Ashcroft's game was pretty solid across the night as well.
Not so much a changing of the guard as just a good recruiting policy and building a good team. Because I think these are the sorts of things that you want to happen naturally. We've wanted McCluggage has been good for a long while, but in terms of being like brutally good, it's what you want in terms of him being kind of the senior players, and more so an on-field leader because Lockie's not firing as consistently as he has in the past. We've seen it from time to time. Normally, the year after he went to Brownlow, he's a bit patchy. Although there was that year when he should have won a Brownlow, and then he won the Brownlow the next year. So, but even then, we didn't think he was that good in that year. So I don't know. Riddle me that. But I think Dunkley, you know what you're going to get. Neil can sometimes be, not quite himself, which is still great. So I'm not saying that he's bad. Let's not do that. But no, good observation. I like it. And I like the idea that, we are finding ways to win games that aren't just the old tropes.
Yeah. Lynn's here. Accountability needs to be looked at because the infighting and mouthing off after some mistakes was obvious and not a good look. What do you think about that sort of stuff? Because I know even players like Logan Morris are happy to sort of dish it out to, 200 gamers and stuff out there. That was pointed out to me as well. So I don't mind it. I don't mind a bit of heated discussion on the field when mistakes are happening because it does keep people accountable. Lindsay's saying he doesn't think it's a good look and probably a bit obvious, but I'd rather them do that on the field so it tightens them up for the next contest or whatever.
I don't really know what's being spoken about. I know in a sense of what it means, but I don't know who and what. Do you have any specific examples for me?
The most obvious one was Zorko a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember who it was against. Having a pretty heated discussion with Harris. Logan Morris has been cited doing it a couple of times as well. It happens a lot in the back line, but I think it needs to because obviously the mistakes down there cost a scoring shot. So,
because to me, from my perspective, the most demonstrative player at other teammates is Charlie Cameron by a mile. That's how it always seems that he's always the one that is first to point the finger and oftentimes the most selfish. That's obviously ebbed and flowed at times. I think in the back line, it's one thing altogether. A different thing altogether, rather. So, and I think Logan Morris is just a bit of a little shit in a good way, where he knows he's good.
Yep.
So if he's mouthing off to opposition players, I'm happy with that. But, it was even I think it might have been like in his first handful of games where I think he took a mark off of Charlie Cameron and kicked a goal. And Cameron was pissed off with him, and Cameron had actually dropped the mark. So it's a bit like, what are you doing? So I don't mind. Not a good look for kids, possibly not, but I think if we had the level of scrutiny and HD cameras showing the triple premiership team, there would have been some pretty heinous stuff we might have seen back then.
Oh, yes. One more from Vince, so we can sort of get this underway. All I'm hearing from pundits is that it's the Pies for the flag, and that the Lions, even if we can get there, can't or won't beat them. It's all very premature talk and the usual run-of-the-mill. Is it because it's true or because he can't take another 2023 grand final scenario? What I will say is the Pies look very good at the moment. They look very, very good at the moment. Defensively, they are the best. Defensively set up, and they are making it work. And, they're hammering teams by 50 points pretty much most weeks.
Yeah, their pressure and system is working really well. They're as good as they are boring, and wow, are they a boring bunch. Like in terms of their players, they're so dull.
Yep.
They're just dull, and it's in a way that I understand footballers are footballers. They're not exactly writing or reading Tolstoy, nor am I. So I'm probably pretty boring as it is. But like, at least our boring players are kind of funny because they're boring. That's what I'll say. But
Sure.
I don't know which pundits you're checking in with, because the ones that I tend to look at have Collingwood and Lions, or even the Lions big game kind of play being above Collingwood. So I think at this point it's a 2-horse race.
The Dogs and the Cats are up there. Their best, both of those teams' best is very, very good. The Dogs and the Cats.
Yeah, well, interestingly, at the start of the season, you know, the whole premiership window thing, there was a different YouTube channel, which I mentioned at the beginning of the year, that talked about a different sort of premiership window, and they looked at a lot of things. And, you know, it's going into a stat hole here, but they had the Lions and the Bulldogs as the only teams in the premiership window, which I thought was interesting. And I think some of the conditions around that were about age profile and having played finals the year before, where I don't think any premiership team has not played finals the year before. So, but we've seen that sometimes you just throw all of that shit out. Although not the classic premiership window. That was obviously true until the end last year. But
it was.
So I just had a power outage, and that took forever, and now I'm angry. So
all right, we are back on track. Yes, Pat's power went out. So we are going to wrap the questions up. Sorry if we didn't get to yours. Hopefully we'll get to them in the next week or so. So let's go straight to the wheel.
I can't remember what we're doing here. Who was last week?
You left me with Sam Mays.
Oh, yeah, sucked in. Who did I get?
Link McCarthy, I think.
Oh, yeah, cool. Nice. Did I win?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, good.
Obviously. All right, so let's spin the wheel. Everyone that's played 50 games that has played for the Brisbane Lions is on the wheel, and we have to debate who is better in some sort of weird scenario. So let's spin the wheel here. It's my turn to pass or hold. Oh, Ash McGrath. I'm going to hold on Ash McGrath.
Yeah, of course.
Bungie. Oh, Aaron Shattuck, another premiership player, another premiership hero.
They both have the same number of premierships.
Do they?
Yeah, they both got one.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Oh, Shat's he barely played in 02, but all right, well, off you go. Talk about your Hudson fantasy.
I mean, obviously, Ash McGrath is synonymous with the miracle on grass. We all know that. But not only that, I think the amount of times between 2004 and 2015, or whenever it is that he decided to hang things up, that Ash McGrath got us out of a bind because we were inevitably losing a game, and the way he just was the short sort of forward, lead-up target, reliable kick on goal. He was probably our best player for quite a number of years there in amongst all that, and really kept us afloat. Could have gone back home to across the WA. I think he was a WA boy. Never did. Stayed across, and just one of the all-timers. Legendary fella as well, Bungie McGrath.
What are your favourite McGrath moments?
Round 13, 2013, his 200th game is probably up there, I would imagine. That has to be it. Like, that has to be it.
You don't have a slight nod to the 2003 prelim or whatever against Sydney, where he kicked a goal from the halfway, and
That's right. Yeah.
That was me doing a little fish sign with my hand as it wobbled its
it just
way
kept
over the
going,
ground. Because that's my favourite Ash McGrath
in the
memory.
pissing wet. Yeah. Fair shout.
It's got more devastating context We all love the Miracle on Grass, but it was largely pointless within the context of everything.
It certainly was, but
Except for his life.
Yeah, I mean, 200th game after the siren, it's just absolutely beautiful. Footy folklore gear. All right, tell me about Aaron Shattuck.
Better than Jack Crisp, I can tell you that.
True.
Aaron Shattuck, he has a highlight. It's just not his.
Yeah, that's right. He was the guy that kicked it to Brownie.
Yeah, in the greatest mark of all time. And I don't understand, and this is going to get into a sidebar because I've got nothing to say about Aaron Shattuck, given the fact that he played in the O2 Grand Final on the bench, and we had Bo go out with a shoulder and Park go out with a hamstring, and he still didn't play. It just goes to show kind of...
Just sitting there in that AAPT bloody windbreaker.
Cellular One windbreaker. How do people think that Nick Riewold's mark is better than Jonathan Brown's? Nick Riewoldt smashes his own guy. Like, if you look at the highlights of that on Agenda Setters, he just knees his mate in the face. Brownie at least got the Hawthorn guy. So I'm having none of that. Yeah. You're not beating Miracle on Grass. This is not going to happen. Aaron Shattuck was kind of pretty anonymous in a pretty good time, and he probably made our good players better. Speaking of those days, have you noticed that since Craig McRae is now a premiership coach at Collingwood, whenever they have the chance to show a highlight from an old Brisbane game, he has a disproportionate number of them now? Because before the game against the no rules and the if it bleeds we will kill it game, they were showing Voss and Eckermanis and then like all of Craig McRae's goals, and it's just like, okay, we get it. Like, he's there. You never would have shown shit that he did until he was a Collingwood coach. And I know that sounds cynical, but I'm going to say it. You're only showing it because he's a Collingwood coach.
Yeah, very possibly.
No, invariably. Not very possibly. Because, unfortunately for Craig McRae, I don't think of him when I think of our premierships. I think of him as a Collingwood coach who's a fake nice guy. How's your mate Blake Hardwick on the weekend? He had a great game, didn't he?
He did. All right, let's have a look at some tipping quickly. At this stage, there's still a game left. Geelong, West Coast just started the third quarter. Currently, I'm sitting on 4. If the Cats get up, I got 5. Missed out on the Suns and the D's.
That's correct. And if anyone tips St Kilda, I want to know what kind of weird premonition. What's that weird stuff? The star signs? Astronomy?
Yep.
Astronomy is a serious one. No, hold on.
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
One of them's real and one of them's not real. Although I'll probably get sent to the Mormons or something for saying that. So, yes, 4 for me. Next week, what do we got?
Dogs Hawthorn Thursday night at Marvel.
Dogs,
yeah, same. But I've gone for 20.
I'm going to go 60.
6? Jesus.
I don't know. I'm feeling like giving a lot to my margins.
All right. Adelaide, Brisbane at the Adelaide Oval.
You first, Monsieur.
Yeah, I might go the Crows. They look really good.
Go on the Lions.
Sydney, Richmond at the MCG.
I've got to tip Richmond. It's a day game. Bolter will be there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually going to go the Tigers as well. God, they were good against the Giants, weren't they?
Yeah, the Tigers should have won.
They should have. Cat Suns at GMHBA. Cat for me.
Catos.
Giants and Port at Manuka.
I mean, I feel like Giants play better at Manuka than they do at weird tractor field stadium in West Sydney.
North West Coast at Hands Oval. Excuse me.
I think that's in Tassie.
Righto.
It might be the University of the one in Launceston.
UTAS, yeah, righto.
that's gotten a sponsorship or something?
Sure. From Hands. Fucking right, eh?
It's just sponsored by like human hands, like, and soon we'll have like Nose Arena. Yeah, I could keep going, but I won't.
North for me.
Yes.
Carlton Essendon at G.
I'm going to tip Essendon, but I might change that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go Blues for now. They had the week off. And then King's birthday, big freeze, Melbourne and Collingwood at the MCG, the Monday 3:20. Go the Pies.
Obviously, Collingwood and Petrarca will get his spleen lacerated again.
Well, hopefully not.
Yeah. Do you think a week off is better than the week Essendon had?
What do you mean?
Well, like, because, honourable defeat, they played well. They won't leave that game going like, oh, that was horrible. Versus having a week of stasis where you still have to look in the mirror and realise that you play for Carlton.
It's a tough one because historically the bye hasn't really helped teams, even though it should. Gives them a chance to go, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah, I want hard stats on that. Because I know what you mean, but I don't know if it's entirely right. A bit like how like Cam Rayner never plays well in finals or something, where it's like he's played well in a lot of the ones and then he's not played well in the ones where we've sucked. So to me, that's directly proportional. So anyway, we are playing Adelaide.
Yes, we are. And they've obviously just made a mess of Sydney. As I said before, we have had a series of close matches against them, and they look the bloody goods so far in 2025.
Do you reckon we get Starcevic to send like some cryptic kind of like ghosty messages to Isaac Rankin this week about how like, you killed me, Isaac. You killed like Principal Skinner.
Yeah, that's right. Stas has got. He should be back soon because they said the latest injury report was 2 weeks. So somewhere around the bye, I would imagine he'd be fit for selection, which is exciting news.
So you don't think that he should go on a technological sleuthing torture mission on Isaac Rankin?
No, I don't. I think Answorth is going to have his work cut out for him, whoever he lines up on, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, well, Answorth can go with him at stoppage. Rochelle flopped. Love that. Good. But I think our key backs kind of match up relatively well. Who's your kind of Thrill and Harris? Or would you go Thrill and Leicester?
No, I think Leicester probably makes a good Tex matchup.
I think Leicester to Tex is the one that you could kind of go okay. I don't really want to have Leicester and like the Frog and Fog, which we've seen in the past, because I think he gets a bit bullied. I'd sooner see Payne go to Fog. Yeah,
then again, I feel like either of them, Fog or Thilthorpe, could do a number on Harris potentially as well. So that's going to be
Harris has got to get back and play his game. And it's, you'd want it to be not the decoy, I suppose, because the ball will go to him a lot. Could be a big Harris game. He didn't play in the preseason. Texan Leicester. Sounds like a meal you'd get. I'll have a Texan Leicester. Thank you.
And then the midfield is a tough one. Their midfield tends to get on top of us quite a bit. Saligo, Dawson, Rankin when he runs through there, Laird, Crouch. It's one of those midfield battles that it seems to go in fits and spurts. Like they'll get a good quarter and a bit, and then we'll have momentum swings as well. So it's going to be a tough match. It's going to be a tough match for a lot of reasons.
I think Laird's one where you can kind of exploit that, because I think he's been playing half-back and coming up to the stoppage. So it's the sort of thing where if we're aware of that and we've got a high half forward that comes back into stoppage, you can do it. Because I don't rate Laird super highly. I think he's a bit slow, and I think you can kind of exploit that going back the other way. So whether that's to try and pin him and make him accountable or just run past him.
And then
One
they've
of
got
the two,
Worrell
but-
and Keane down back as well as their keys that have been playing pretty all right this year as well. They've got
pretty good.
they've got
Worrell's
players
good.
all over the ground.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we kind of pull a few interesting levers. But it'll be tight. It'll be a good game. Like, this is why you watch football. This is why they play football. You want to play good teams. You want to watch good games. And, Adelaide Oval's a nice field. Horrible people, I can imagine. Hopefully. I mean, my dad was from Adelaide, so I feel like I've got license to say that. So, yes. And then O'Brien, an awkward ruckman, would be the name of his autobiography.
Big time. And yeah, him and Oscar have had some pretty interesting battles over the last couple of years as well. So if he steps in, it's going to be another one, or might be interesting to see how Fort goes up against him.
I think Fort's got like pretty good ruck craft. As I said, I'd be kind of rolling with Fort for a little bit, but the midfield still need to kind of sort themselves out and figure out how we go. But I will possibly go and watch highlights of that Sydney game and then be much more worried.
Well, as a soccer fan, you will love Rochelle's goal assist.
Yeah, maybe.
No, you'll like it. I mean, I
It'll
like
be
it.
all right.
Yeah.
Did he back heel or something?
Outside of the boot, middle of the ground, through ball, found keys in space. It was pretty good.
It would be those two, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't like Rochelle flopping like a soccer player because I don't think that does a service to anybody.
No.
But, yeah. What do you
Big
do with the
cracking match.
Rochelle and Rankin?
Yeah. I don't know because they've both got a hold of us before.
Could go Rochelle and Answorth, and then you could go like Moddy with Rankin for a bit more run.
I think Rankin's probably just a bit too clever for Moddy.
Oh, that's a bit mean.
It is.
We'll see. Yeah.
We will. We're going to have to wrap things up there for another week. And we will be back next week with hopefully...
no power outages.
No power outages, and hopefully we can talk about a game in the same way we did against the Hawks. So, fingers crossed for that, eh?
We've got a good record for you tipping against the Lions, so don't change it, you prick.
No, I won't be.
Good. Keep it that way.